اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف
Before we continue, for all the marhum mu'mineen, mu'minat, the ulama, the shuhada, particularly the recent shuhada of Palestine, of Lebanon, of Yemen, of Iraq, and all other parts of the Muslim world, let us remember them with a Surah Al-Fatiha. Also, just as a reminder that there is a children's program going on downstairs, thanks to our dedicated volunteers who make this happen so that we can all benefit from the lecture up here. So if you have kids under the ages of 10, please make sure that they're benefiting from the children's program or they're up here benefiting from the lecture right next to you. And for all of those volunteers who give their time so that we can benefit in peace from the lecture up here, let us remember them with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. Finally, I'd like to request our respected visiting scholar, Shaykh Reza, to begin the lecture. Please welcome him with another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجته على الخلق أجمعين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلى الله عليه وسلم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Dear elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the past few nights, we have been discussing the legacy of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, in particular this khutbah which she recited for the Muslims called Khutbatul Fadakiyya, or the khutbah of Fadak. And we said that one of the questions that sometimes we might ask is, why is it that Fadak became such an issue? Last night we talked about this idea, this fact of early Muslim history, that when the Khalifa, the first Khalifa, comes into that seat, he attains, or we can say usurps that authority, according to the position of the school of the Ahlul Bayt. The Khalifa was not just branding himself as the representative or the successor to Rasulullah, the person who is going to come and sit in the seat of Rasulullah. But he was also determining for the Muslims the legacy of Rasulullah himself. He was defining for the Muslims what authority the Khalifa, not just himself, but for future Khulafa, what authority do they have? And this is all placed within this idea of the legacy of Rasulullah. When we think about a legacy is something that has been passed on from someone or some time in the past. Some idea, some habit, some action that someone in the past is now giving to someone in the future. Sometimes we talk about legacy as the inheritance of a person. All of the hard work, the material gain that they have made throughout their life, that becomes the legacy of a father to his children, of a mother to her children. But legacy is not just from a father to a son. It could even be the legacy of myself as an individual. When I grow up, when I am young, I'm just starting out my life, I have to be careful of what habits I am creating for myself. Sometimes when you are young, you think, well, what is the easiest way that I can get what I want? And sometimes that means that I will cut corners. I am willing to lie. Well, I am in class, the class is getting harder and harder, and I don't want to put in the work, and so I might lie to my parents, to my teacher, so that I can at least put up a good show. I don't have to face the music, as they say. I don't have to feel that shame or that embarrassment for having gotten poor grades or having gotten poor marks on my exam. What I am doing when I am young is I am setting up a habit that I don't want to do the hard work that is required for this class. And if I continue down that road, then I am creating a habit for myself that stops me from doing the hard work. And it actually gets in my way. Even sometimes when the class is easy. If I make lying a part of my character, a part of my habits, even when I am doing something good, I will still lie. Just because it's something that comes almost as second nature to myself. Even when I have I'm in the right, because a person has gotten so used to lying and hiding the truth, gotten so used to not being open to the people even that you love, that you're, even in those moments, succumb to this vice of lying. You start lying, you start hiding the truth. Not to even mention the moments when things become difficult and you feel like you have no other option but to lie. When we are young, in other words, we create a legacy for ourselves when we get older. Whether that is hiding the truth, whether that is cutting corners, whether that is leaving off our salat, or whatever else it might be. I don't care about what my parents say. I don't care about what my elders say. I think I know everything, and I can figure everything else out on my own. Create a sense of arrogance in myself. I don't want to listen to other people's advice. And sometimes in this society, we say that you have to learn the ropes on your own. You have to fall, and then you have to pick yourself back up on your own. We create this culture of loneliness amongst ourselves. We think we have to do everything on ourselves, make all those mistakes by ourselves, so that we can learn how to live a proper life. Whereas Islam tells us, don't create those habits of loneliness when you are young, so that when you become old and people start to move away from you automatically, because usually when some people get old because they haven't created good habits within themselves, they aren't kind and compassionate towards those who are younger or those who might, for example, depend on them. People are already going to distance themselves from you. That's just a fact of nature and a fact of life. As you get older, as people see that vibrancy leaving you, people are already going to feel like they want to do their own thing. And if we've created a culture where we already value ourselves and our own sort of decision-making, all alone, separate from everyone else, then we're going to start that process of loneliness from a very young age. And so we see this idea of a legacy playing an important part even in our own individual lives. Legacy is, on one level, the habits that we set in place for the rest of our lives. But a legacy isn't just on an individual level. When we talk about legacy, sometimes we talk about it in terms of a family. The adults, the parents do something, and that habit or that virtue or that vice gets passed on to their children. An adult, a parent, for example, he is willing to cheat, he is willing to steal, he is willing to, for example, not give in zakat or turn a blind eye towards a beggar on the street or whatever else it might be. The children see that. And they say that this is what I should do. And so one of the things that legacies do for us is that they determine for us on one level what is right and what is wrong, how I should live my life. Sometimes when it's just a habit, I can tell, for example, if somebody asks me, is lying good or bad? And if I'm in the habit of lying, even if I'm in the habit of lying, I can still say lying is bad, even though I might still do it. But if a parent now is showing to his child that this is what you should do, because this is what I do. I turn a blind eye to a person in need when they ask me for help. The child sees that. And he doesn't just see that as a habit, he sees that as what is right and what is good. And so it's something that he will carry on in his life. And we see this in particular when for example, this recent case of the destruction of the Gaza Strip. We, as independent, separate observers, we might say that for 75 years, you bomb a people, you kick them out of their house, you kill them, you steal them from them, you do everything you want from them. You use your military and your intelligence to take away the property and the land of a people, to take away their lives, to oppress them in whatever way you think and you can. For 75 years, these people are still standing up, and they're still a legacy determines what is right and what path I should take to move forward. Everyone else in the world might say that this is unjust. And not only is it unjust, but it's not going to get you what you want. And yet we see the same policies being enacted. That's because legacy has that effect. It determines sometimes what is right and what is wrong. And even more so, legacies can also determine the extent and the aspirations that we have. One of the beautiful verses of the Quran, this is in Surah Yasin. It is when the prophets of Allah, these different messengers that Allah sends to a people, they come to the people, and these people, of course, as is common amongst the stories of the Anbiya and the Rusul, they reject the message of the prophets. What's beautiful about these verses of Surah Yasin is that Allah tells in the words of these people, He gives the reason why those people will reject the prophets. The people, they don't just say, you guys are liars. They don't just say, we don't want to listen to you. They say that you are a bashar, a human being like we are. وَمَا أَنزَلَ الرَّحْمَنُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. The Lord, the merciful, compassionate Lord that we believe in. Now these people in Surah Yasin, in the beginning of Surah Yasin, Allah describes these people as a people who believe. So these are not polytheists, these are not agnostic or atheists that are rejecting outright the message of these prophets. They are believing people. And yet what they say is, مَا أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُنَا. They say, you are human beings like us. وَمَا أَنزَلَ الرَّحْمَنُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And because the merciful, compassionate Lord has not revealed to us anything, because you are similar to us, therefore He has not revealed anything to you. And so a legacy also determines the extent and the aspirations and the hopes of a people. Such that when the earlier generations, what they have done, and the potential that they have activated in their soul, that becomes the greatest thing that a person could aspire to. And this is where the events of Lady Fatima Zahra's life becomes ever more important. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali.
When we look in Islamic history, what is it that we take pride in? What is it that we take pride in? What is it that we derive confidence from? We say we are all Muslims, and we say we've had this great Islamic civilization that spans for over 1,000 years, from the farthest reaches of the known world, all the way from Spain to the borders of India, and even within India. A civilization that created technology, that created sciences, that created all of these things that human beings had never seen before. What part of that civilization do we take pride in? Sometimes, when you ask Muslims, they will say, look how much land the Muslims conquered. Look how much wealth the Muslims had. Look how many people were under the subjugation of the Muslims. And if that's what we take pride in, if that's where our confidence comes from, when all of those things are taken away, when each and every one of these Muslim countries are slowly cut into pieces and they're divided up amongst the different Western countries, then slowly all of our confidence dissipates, and then we say, well, na'udhu billah, Allah has left us all alone. We lose that confidence. Because our confidence is what it was in how much land we had. And this is where the legacy of Rasulullah becomes ever more important. What is it that we remember from the life of Rasulullah? Is it the maghazi, or the battles that Rasulullah took part in? How many people could Rasulullah force to enter into his new religion? That's somehow how we frame the question. How many communities became Muslim under the threat of the sword? Or how much zakat, how much khums Rasulullah and his army could gather? If that's what we think about, then as soon as that goes away, then our trust, our belief in Islam also goes away. And this is what becomes so important when we think about the issue of fadak. When the Khalifa is now coming and saying, نَحْنُ الْأَنْبِيَا لَا نُورَثْ. We as the prophets, as the messengers of Allah, we do not leave a legacy that now our children can come and take possession of. What he is saying is that the family of Rasulullah has no greater claim to his legacy than I do as the Khalifa. I can determine for the Muslims what that legacy entails and what that legacy requires of the Muslims. And that's where fadak comes in. When the clearest thing for all of the Muslims, and even for the Arabs, was that a son or a daughter inherits from his or her father. That's the clearest thing. It was a custom amongst the Arabs, and it was a requirement within the Quran itself. We have various prophets in the Quran saying that Sulaiman, for example, inherits from Dawood. Zakaria asks Allah for a son that he can inherit from and can inherit from Ali Yaqub. We have all of these examples. The Khalifa says, because now I am Khalifa, I determine the legacy of Rasulullah, you have no more right. You have no greater right than I do as the Khalifa. And so this is where Lady Fatima Zahra says that if I don't place an importance in this legacy, then the Khalifa is going to determine what that legacy is going to entail. And that's where Lady Fatima Zahra, it is said in some of the reports about this khutbah, that when she hears that Fadak is now being taken away from her, it is said that she wraps her jilbab, her outer garments, covering of herself, and she walks towards the masjid. In one of the ahadith, it is said that she runs or she walks at a quick pace towards the masjid with an entourage of her servants that were surrounding her so that her iffa and her modesty is not compromised. She enters into the masjid. And it is said that a curtain is set for her because the Muslims knew that something great is about to take place. The Muslims, they set a curtain in front of Lady Fatima Zahra to protect her modesty. And it is said that Lady Fatima Zahra at this moment, she says, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. And all of the Muslims begin to cry. All of those who have gathered in the masjid, they hear the name of Rasulullah, the Prophet of Islam, the Prophet of Allah, who had just passed away not too long ago. As soon as they hear the words Rasulullah, they begin to shed tears. And it is said that the crying became so loud that Lady Fatima, she had to take a pause. And then she continues. And it is at this moment that she cites these words of the Quran. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. She is setting the stage. She's saying that you are forgetting the memory of Rasulullah. And you're putting your hopes in other things that Rasulullah had set limits to. The function of Rasulullah was not to become an authoritarian leader who is going to determine every single aspect of the Muslims' lives. The function of Rasulullah was to allow the Muslims to flourish in a society that prioritized their relationship with Allah. Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. So any individual can enter into this ummah and can become a full citizen so long as they have that piety and that fear of Allah. I want to just read a little bit of the khutbah of Lady Fatima Zahra so that we can, on the one hand, get a taste for the beauty of the khutbah, but then also, on the other hand, to understand how this khutbah progresses. We say that she's talking about the legacy of Rasulullah, and that's very important. And of course, this is all in the context where Amirul Mu'mineen, his khilafat is being taken away from him. The Muslims are going down a different path. But it's important how Lady Fatima begins her khutbah. And inshallah, we can begin that with after a loud salawat. She begins, فَبَلَّغَ النِّذَارَةَ صَادِعًا بِالرِّسَالَةِ. I want to just hear these words. They're very beautiful for those who understand Arabic, but they also have a certain melody to them. فَبَلَّغَ النِّذَارَةَ صَادِعًا بِالرِّسَالَةِ مائلا على مدرجة المشركين ضاربا لثبجهم آخذا بكظمهم يهشم الأصنام وينكث الهام. When Rasulullah came, he delivered a warning He announced the message, and he blocked the polytheists. He crushed their backs, and he seized their necks. He smashed their idols and severed their skulls until he had defeated them, and they showed their backs to him in flight. In other words, Rasulullah, he vanquished polytheism as the way of life for the people of that time. He established Islam and monotheism, Tawheed, for the entire community as the basis upon which he is creating a new community. And then she says, night gave way to morning. Truth gleamed forth. Religion's voice dominated. And Satan's camel frothings subsided. And this is a beautiful part of the khutbah, wherein she uses this image of night and darkness being overcome by light and being dispelled by light and by guidance. And this is as well a common theme, a common image in the Quran. We look in, for example, Surah Al-Fajr, wal-Fajr, wa-layalin ashr, or in other verses of the Quran. For example, the Surah Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq min sharri ma khalaq. Falaq is that moment when the sky, the darkness, is split and light emerges. When we look in the Quran, when Allah talks about light, it's not just about sort of a physical or a material light. It's talking about guidance, doing away with darkness. Light dispelling the darkness. And then she says, وَكُنْتُمْ. The Arabs of the time, she describes this in vivid detail. She says, وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِنَ النَّارِ مَذْقَةَ الشَّارِبِ وَنُهْزَةَ الطَّامِرِ. Rasulullah comes at a time when, what did you have? All of you were at the precipice of the fire. You were just a sip of water for the drinker, an opportunity for the covetous. Booty, or treasure, easily grasped by the swift, trampled underfoot. In other words, as a society, you were in the backwaters of the entire known world. You weren't even a thought for people to take hesitation about. If anybody wanted to come and conquer you, they could have done it easily. You could not have even opposed them. You couldn't have resisted them. And once Rasulullah comes, he gives to you the greatest treasure that any human being could ask for. And so God saved you through his messenger. This after small and great calamities. Yes, Rasulullah had to face a lot of danger. He was attacked by strong warriors from amongst yourselves, Bedouin wolves, and turncoat people of the book. Each time they kindled a battle fire, God extinguished it. Whenever the horn of error appeared, whenever a polytheist mob opened wide, Muhammad threw his brother into its jaws, and Ali, alayhi salam, would not return until he had stamped its ear with his soles, dampened its blade with his blade, dampened its blaze with his blade.
Nare Haydari!
This is what Rasulullah did for you. In another khutbah, and I will end here, in another khutbah, Amirul Mu'mineen tells us about the function of Rasulullah, of all of the Anbiya of Allah. They come to give life to those things that are hidden within us. Sometimes we think that the messenger of Allah comes and gives us something new. Whereas if we look in the function and the message of Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt tell us that all of these things that we are telling you, many of them are simply us creating an environment in which those hidden treasures within yourselves can come to fruition. And so when Amir al-Mu'mineen describes the function of a prophet, he says, فَبَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رُسُلًا. Allah sends prophets to the people. وَوَاتَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْبِيَاءَ لِيَسْتَعْدُوهُمْ مِيثَاقَ فِطْرَتِهِ وَيُذَكِّرُوهُمْ مَنْسِيَّ نِعْمَتِهِ وَيَحْتَجُّوا إِلَيْهِمْ بِالتَّبْلِيغِ. The prophets, when they come, when Allah sends these prophets, He is uncovering for these people the treasures that are hidden within them, so that they can fulfill the requirements that are set within their own creation. We talk about honesty. We all know, if we are asked in our moments of loneliness and when we are all alone, if we ask ourselves, is it better to be honest or is it better to hide the truth? We would tell the truth. We would be honest. If we say, for example, is it better to direct our lives towards Allah, towards the source of our creation, we would say, of course, it is better to do that. But the world comes and distracts us. It takes us away from our ultimate goal. And this is where Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 24, becomes that much more important. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladina amanu, istajibu lillahi walirrasul, idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. When Allah and His Prophet come and call you towards that which will give you life, answer them. In other words, Islam is that religion which is supposed to give life to our souls and our intellects, to our entire being, whether we understand it or not, by the way. Sometimes we can understand it with our minds and sometimes we can't. This is what we take pride in. This is the legacy of Rasulullah. A prophet who based his religion on justice and on equity for all human beings. And this is particularly important, and I will end with this. I know I said I'll end with the previous one, but I'll definitely end with this final word. In our time, in our society, a lot of times there's this talk about power, the importance of power, who has power in a family, who has power in society, and all of those types of things. And that's important. You have to recognize the power centers in our society. But that's not what distinguishes an individual from another individual. It's not based on how much power I have or how much power you have. When Islam comes and tells us that our society and our honor and our nobility is based on our consciousness of Allah, that creates a society that's not based on power dynamics. That's not based on this idea that, for example, a father has no more rights over the rest of the family than any one of the other family members. No. We have those power dynamics, we have those structures, and those structures are either just or they're unjust. If they're unjust, then we have to rectify it. If they're just, then that's a different story. But I don't see myself as having any honor or any high respect simply because I am the father of the family. The thing that distinguishes me is not whether I am leading the family or I'm providing for my family or I'm determining the future of my family. The thing that gives me distinction or that gives me honor as a person in a Muslim society is how much taqwa I have. And so even when the Khalifa comes and tells to a people that this is where we are leading the society, if the people of taqwa in a society that is truly Islamic, if they dissent, and we see this in Islamic history, there were times when Muslims prioritized what the muttaqeen said over the people in power. They prioritized taqwa over power. And that is what a properly Islamic society looks like. That's what a properly Islamic family looks like, where I care about my family as a father, And I understand my responsibility as a father, but I don't lord it over my children. Or I don't lord it over my spouse. I understand. I have a responsibility and I must fulfill this responsibility. But I fulfill this responsibility in terms of my responsibility towards Allah. And I see this journey as either taking me closer or taking me farther away from Allah. When Allah tells a father to care for his children, or to care for his family, to be kind and compassionate, to take example from the Prophet, this is the example that we take. I mentioned Imam Ali, alayhi salam. And these are the final days, the final hours of the life of Lady Fatimah al-Zahra. When we think about the tragedy of Lady Fatimah, we are thinking about the tragedy of the entire Ahlul Bayt. And it is a tragedy that affects different parts of the Ahlul Bayt in different ways. But of course, the person who was affected ever more deeply was Amir al-Mu'mineen. The greatest support that Amir al-Mu'mineen had after Rasulullah was Lady Fatimah al-Zahra. I mentioned this report, this historical report, last night, that Imam Ali and the Banu Hashim, they delayed accepting the Khilafat of the first Khalifa so long as Lady Fatimah was alive. But when Lady Fatimah passes away, we see that one after another, the support of Amir al-Mu'mineen, it begins to wane. It is said that even those early companions, Zubayr, and even members of the Banu Hashim, they slowly start to turn away from Imam Ali. And Imam Ali sees this. It is said that when Imam Ali remembers many years later, he says these words about his relationship with Lady Fatimah al-Zahra. He says, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا أَغْضَبْتُهَا وَلَا أَكْرَهْتُهَا عَلَىٰ أَمْرٍ حَتَّى قَبَضَهَا اللَّهُ وَلَا أَغْضَبَتْنِي وَلَا عَسَتْ لِي أَمْرًا. Imam Ali, when he remembers his relationship with Lady Fatimah al-Zahra, he says, there was never a moment in which I made her angry, or I made her do something that she did not want to do, until finally Allah took her away. And she never made me angry, nor did she ever disobey me in anything that I might have asked of her. وَلَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهَا فَتَنْكَشَفَتْ عَلَيَّ الْهُمُومُ وَالْأَحْزَانُ. Whenever I would look at her, all of my sorrows and all of my grief would just dissipate from my heart. And Lady Fatimah al-Zahra was that source of support and source of patience and calm for Imam Ali. And so it is said that when Imam Hassan and the messenger from the house of Lady Fatima, they come and they tell Imam Ali in the masjid that Lady Fatima has passed away. It is said that when Imam Ali hears these words, as he is walking back towards his house, it is said that once Imam Ali falls to the ground and he thinks, this hero of the battles of the Prophet of Allah, he cannot even bear to stand up and walk towards the house. And so he falls to the ground. And then he gets up. And it is said that he takes another few steps and he falls again to the ground. And it is said that Imam Ali, he says, قال علي لما سمع أنها قد ماتت بمن العزاء يا بنت محمد بمن العزاء يا بنت محمد Now who can I give my sorrow and bear my grief to? O the daughter of Muhammad, كنت بك أتعزى ففيما العزاء من بعدك يا بنت محمد. Oh, I would tell all of my grief and all of my pain to you, O daughter of Muhammad. Now who can I tell my pain to? And it is said that Imam Ali recited these words of poetry. He says, Nafsi alayya, Nafsi ala zafaratiha mahdusa, Ya laytaha kharajat ma'a zafarati. Oh, my soul, it is imprisoned with the sighs and the sorrows that emanates from it. And it is almost as though my soul is going to depart from my body with these sorrows and with these sighs that emerge from it. لا خير بعدك في الحياة وإنما. There is no good in life after you, O Fatima. There is no good in life after you, O Fatima. وإنما أبكي مخافة أن تطول حياتي. The only reason that I cry now, O Fatima, oh daughter of Rasulullah, the only reason I cry now is that my life is extended without you. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein.
रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी की छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशादी है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी की छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशादी है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी सी छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशादी है। नाना अजीब सारे हम पर गुजर गए, रंजो अलम ने घेर लिया हम जिधर गए। नाना खुदा के घर में न हमको अमा मिली, भाई ने शहर छोड़ के जंगल की राह ली। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी सी छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी सी छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। नाना हमारे घर का सब असबाब लुट गया, नाना हमारे सर पे न बाकी रही रिदा। नाना हजार कर्म जफा की नहीं उन्हें, कलमों में हाय ना लगा की नहीं उन्हें। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी सी छाई है, उनके खुखों के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। नाना शहीद हो गए भाई के जाने साथ, एक एक करके भर गए असहाब ज़ीवकार। नाना बला के बन में कयामत का रंग पड़ा, भाई से भाई बाप से बेटा बिछड़ गया। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी सी छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफ़ा के उदासी सी छाई है, तुम देखो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। नाना ज़मीन कर्बो बला लाल हो गई, कासिम की लाश घोड़ों से पामाल रोजे पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। नाना असीर भारत और एक तीर सन, बांधे गए थे मिसले गुनाहगार हस्तन। नाना हम अपने हाल पे रोते थे बार बार, नाना हमारे हाल पे हंसते थे बख्शियार। रोजे पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। रोजे पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। इतने में शामी ने ताना गज़ब किया, सैदानी को कनीज़ी में उसने तलब किया। होती थी लाख जिल्लतें हम देखते रहे, हंस हंस के ताज़ी जाने सितम झेलते रहे। रोज़े पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। नाना तबाह हो के हमारी है शाम से, एक दागिन सकीना कलाई है शाम से। अब तक है नींद दस्त के शानों को देख लो, नाना हमारे दिल पे निशानों को देख लो। रोज़े पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। ज़ैनब जो रो के पड़ती थी क़ब्र नबी पे है, थर्रा रहा था रोज़ा सुल्तान मशरक़ है। बस खत्म कर मिसाल ये हमनाक दास्तां, रोए हैं इस अलम में ज़मीन और आसमां। रोज़े पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। रोज़े पे मुस्तफा के उदासी सिंचाई है, कुंबे को खो के ज़ैनब नाशाद आई है। या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन।
हुसैन आया है देखो तो एक नजर अम्मा हुसैन आया है देखो तो एक नजर अम्मा सदाएं देता है कब से तेरा सर अम्मा हुसैन आया है देखो तो एक नजर अम्मा हुसैन आया है देखो तो एक नजर अम्मा हुसैन आया है देखो तो एक
فاطمة الزهراء يا 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 فاطمة الزهراء اسمت میبارد از نفس باران اسمت میبارد از نفس باران نور رخت دارد جلوه بی پایان نور رخت دارد جلوه بی پایان بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشقی رام بر روح بلند السلام بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشقی رام بر روح بلند السلام سلام ای گوهر دریای نور ای آیه زیبای عشق ریحان روح خدا سلام ای دار مدران علی ای نور و نبود حسن ای مادر ارباب ما لب مکرما سیدتی لبیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک نور تو در دلها آیه توحید است نور تو در دلها آیه توحید است جلوه‌ای از نورت صورت خورشید است جلوه‌ای از نورت صورت خورشید است آیه به آیه از دل قرآن داد خدا این پیام بر روح بلند السلام آیه به آیه از دل قرآن داد خدا این پیام بر روح بلند السلام سلام ای کوثر توحید و حق ای قصد تو یاسین و قلب ای روی تو شمس الضحی سلام ای معنی و کتاب ای مجد تو واجب ای مادر ارباب ما روی لب ابرنا سیدتی لبیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک نام تو تنها بر دلبرم مرهم نام تو تنها بر قسم دلم مرهم با تو شود محشر صبح قیامتم با تو شود محشر صبح قیامتم سایه لطفت بر سر دنیا تا به ابد مستقام در عمر بلند السلام سایه لطفت بر سر دنیا تا به ابد مستقام بر روح بلند السلام سلام ای جان کلام رسول ای عطر تو بوی بهشت ای رحمت بی انتها سلام ای سید الاولیا ای نور دل انبیا ای مادر ارباب ما سلام ای جان کلام رسول ای عطر تو بوی بهشت ای رحمت بی انتها سلام ای سید الاولیا ای نور دل انبیا ای مادر ارباب ما ای قومی بی همتا سیدتی لبیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله علیک اسم تو میبارد از نفس باران نور رخت دارد جلوه بی پایان اسم تو میبارد از نفس باران نور رخت دارد جلوه بی پایان بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشقی مدام بر روح بلند السلام بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشقی مدام بر روح بلند السلام سلام ای گوهر دریای نور ای آیه زیبای عشق ریحان روح خدا سلام ای دار مدار علی ای نور نبود حسن ای مادر ارباب ما زبت لب مکرما سیدتی لبیک یا فاطمة الزهراء صلی الله الزهراء صلى الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء صلى الله عليك مظلوم شهيد غريب عطشان عريان بكاس مولا يا فاطمة الزهراء 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 شمسية الحمراء يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء يا فاطمة الزهراء بنت رسول الله يا فاطمة الزهراء أم أبيها يا فاطمة الزهراء قسمة الله الكبرى يا فاطمة الزهراء 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 بر مشام من میرسد هر لحظه بوی کربلا بر دلم ترسم بماند آرزوی کربلا تشنه آب فراتم ای عجب مهلت بده تا بگیرم در بغل قبر شهید کربلا حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جانم ذکر حسین ذکر الله حب حسین حب الله ذکر حسین ذکر الله حب حسین حب الله سلمان من سلامتون یا ابا عبدالله سلمان من سلامتون یا ابا عبدالله الهی باب الفرد 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 الهی برقیه الهی برقیه الهی برقیه الهی برقیه الهی برقیه الهی برقیه الهی بسکینه الهی بسکینه الهی بسکینه الهی بسکینه یا زینب 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 یا زهرا 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 تیرا امیر المؤمنین امیر المؤمنین امیر المؤمنین امیر المؤمنین امیر المؤمنین امیر نگاه سرد مردم بود و آتش، صدا بین صدا گم بود و آتش، به جای تسلیت با دسته گل
أنصاره اللهم انصر من نصر الدين واخذل من خذل المسلمين اللهم ارزقنا شهادة في سبيلك اللهم احفظنا. Let us take our hearts to Medina, to the grave of our mother, Fatimiyya Zahra. Think of all of those who are not in our majlis, all of those who are in need of our dua, those who are sick. Inshallah, we ask for their recovery. Think of those in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Yemen, all of the mujahideen on the front lines, and let us recite 5 times together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma